I'm Riley Reese. This is the Sophia Unfiltered podcast where we bring together thought leaders, wellness entrepreneurs, makers, and emerging health leaders. We're here to have raw, unfiltered conversations because sharing your stories has the power to change lives, help others heal, and transform the way we take care of ourselves. Here we go. We've invited Dr. Darian Parker. He's a certified personal trainer, and he's been in the fitness and wellness industry for over 20 years. So put on your favorite workout gear and get ready to get inspired. Let's get moving the Sophia Unfiltered style. Dr. Darian, welcome to the show.
Hey, I am here, excited. I love being a guest on people's shows. I'm so used to always doing interviews. So it's nice to be on the other side.
Oh, good. You should do that more often then and spread the goodness to other shows.
For sure. I'm trying. I'm going to definitely been working on doing a little bit more of that.
Okay, cool. So for all of our listeners who maybe don't know you and want to hear a little bit more about your story, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got started in the health and wellness profession?
Yeah, happy to do it. Yeah, so it's been 22, 23 years. And I was telling one of my clients earlier today, I was training, I was like, I don't think my life turned out the way I thought it was going to, but that's a good thing. It's actually very good thing. But, I listened to my dad and he said, do something that you feel like you would really enjoy for a job. And I always felt like exercise is something I really enjoyed. But the other thing is I really enjoy just meeting people. I enjoy connecting with other people, especially one-on-one. And I felt that fitness is a great platform for that, especially training and personal training. So I started out in training, that's about 2001. And I remember the moment I did it, I knew this was like my thing. I was like, this is natural for me. This feels like, everybody I think has something they do, and they're like, this feels easier or natural for me. And so training people always felt like that. But I still kind of had this goal of I wanted to teach in the university or college system and be a professor. And I did that. It's where I got my doctorate for that purpose. But through that process, I realized, I'm a trainer. This is, this education will just help with, I think, respectability and people seeing me on a different level with it. But I knew I was a trainer through and through. So I've been doing that full time for over 2 decades. I've continued to teach. And then I have my own training business, have my own consulting and management company for spa, fitness, and recreation companies. I co-own with a colleague of mine, do a lot of guest speaking, presentations, things of that nature, and then have run fitness clubs and design clubs and all that stuff in between there with it. So it's been an awesome journey because I think it's been a journey of a lot of unexpected turns with it, but I felt like I just followed what I was good at, honestly, and went with that, and then decided that I wasn't going to have shame about it. Because often in my profession, a lot of people look down on trainers and go, "Oh, he's just a trainer. It's how hard is that to do? It's not a real job." But I had to get over a lot of that shame. I felt like it's like, no, I am a trainer. I should be proud of that. I do have a lot of education, but through and through, I'm a trainer. I enjoy it.
I think there's something to be said for trainers and trainers, like loving what you do. That comes across in such a different way. I mean, you're not just a trainer, you're a psychologist, you're holding space for people. People bring you their most intimate things. And as they start to move their bodies, emotion moves. And so you get access to things that maybe even their own therapist doesn't get to know about them because it's more real. It's just a little more organic. Do you have a group that you love to work with? Is it a specialty that you have or your niche, that type of person?
No particular population or group is, more exciting to me or not. I think it's just a matter of just the relationship that I have with people. And the majority of my clients have been with me more a decade plus. So I've had these very long-term relationships, and that's really what I focus on. I mean, I do have new people come into my life here and there with training, but I really enjoy the relationship building. And so whether they are an older client, younger client, whatever, it's really just building the relationship. I think that's actually kind of my advantage for me is with my education is I have a psychology-based doctorate. So I think that gives me an edge in that I understand a lot of psychological theory practices, and I place that into my training business and working with people. So in some sense, they're getting not only training with me, they're getting talk therapy at the same time with it, which I think is a very unique conversation or component. But yeah, I think just there's no specific group, athletes or special doesn't matter to me, just as long as we develop a good quality relationship.
Yeah, the word that's coming to my mind as I'm hearing you talk is safety. Like it sounds like there's so much safety, not just physical safety, you're keeping your clients safe, but there's emotional safety with you of I mean, something to be said. They've been with you for 10 years. That, I'm sure they know how to do all the exercises on their own. They could probably train other people, but there's something about the quality of that relationship that you're bringing, which is why they keep coming back because you really care. And I think that comes across even as you're talking about your clients.
I do most of my training in the morning, but I have a few people in the evening that I've worked with forever. And the longest is this guy I've had for 17 years. And it's a long-term relationship. And he told me, it's not that long ago, he goes, this is the longest relationship, like intimate relationship I've had in my entire life outside of my kids. It was like, it's hard when you're with someone that long, it's hard to remember where it began. And it's just because it always feels like it was always there for that. And, I'm working with people through their divorces, through their marriages, through children being born, attending baby showers. I've seen kids from like 3, 4 years old. Now I know them in college and stuff. I'm experiencing that regularly in my life. And I think that's the special part about what I do is getting to grow with people.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I'm still in contact with a couple of trainers that I've had through my lifetime, and it's that same relationship. Like you become friends, you become almost family, that you really come in kind of in rough shape sometimes to a training session. I've had a trainer be like, you know what, we're walking to Starbucks and I'm getting you a Frappuccino today. Like today is a Frappuccino day. And it builds, I mean, it really adds so much to your life. And I was talking to Riley about this before you got on, but I've been out of fitness for probably about 2 years due to some chronic pain and health issues I've been having. And I got back to the gym a couple weeks ago and I cried in the gym because, first of all, seeing myself in the mirror of like not recognizing that. And then feeling like a fish out of water in the gym, which was a new experience for me of I didn't really know what to do. I did like 4 squats and was so sore that I felt like I was going to fall like afterwards. And just feeling like I don't fit in and I didn't have to worry about people looking at me because everyone was looking at their phones, which was a new a new experience. I know.
So we're actually really
Everybody's
strange.
Yeah, that was new to me just over the past like 2 or 3 years I've been out of the gym. I'm like, everybody's just sitting on machines looking at their phone. But I'm curious, like with somebody like me that's been out of working out for a long time, how do you work with somebody like, how do you help build somebody's confidence where you're just like, I'm quite sure if we had a session today, I'd come in and like cry for half of it as I notice how weak I am and just not able to do what I used to do.
Yeah, I've experienced this many times with people.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get to your question for sure. I have a very kind of unique version of all this just because all of my clients are live virtual, like 100% full-time business. And I've trained people in person for 17 years. And I moved to this format like in 2018. But even if it's in person or this format, the same principles apply with talking with people. In many ways, it's more intimate this way. It's a strange thing. That's another topic. But I think the first thing is one of just seeking to understand what the person's going through, and then giving them permission to have a complicated relationship with exercise. This is one thing I think people feel, I say this word again, they feel shame or they feel like I'm not good enough. I haven't been doing this. What have I done? And I say, listen, it's okay to have a complicated relationship with exercise. You're doing something that is not intuitive to you. In fact, it's not intuitive to most humans. And biologically, we're conservation machines. We do things for survival. And we're only going to do things that are going to keep us alive, generally biologically. And the concept of exercising for health is very foreign to us, is very foreign to humans. So I think it's not just whatever habits you're doing, things that's also deeply built in within you that I don't want to do this. It's okay to have that feeling and to discuss that feeling and then start creating a plan that says, well, how do we progressively, slowly over time, build that back into your life? Not just jump in and go, oh man, let's just go, go, go. Like, how do we slowly kind of refeed you back into this? And while also having talk therapy and discussing your feelings and listening to you. And the crying's part of it. I've experienced that many, many times with people. And it's totally okay. You just got to be there for people.
Helpful to hear that from a professional, because I think that shame piece, we're so primed for shame and we're so primed to be hard on ourselves. And then if you have a fitness professional, that you have to be so careful with that because we're so ready to take that on. I just went to a class the other day and I tried to get some pointers of like, is there a beginner class or is there a way to get into this kind of a basics? And the young, very fit person was like, you should be able to make any modifications and you should. And I was like, okay, thank you. And, kind of like slithered out of there. It was just like, I have enough distance to know like, okay, this is not a me thing. This is a her thing. But in the moment, you could picture my eyes like a deer in the headlights.
Well, one of the issues I think in our profession is that we just don't have a lot of educated fitness professionals in terms of psychosocial health and wellness, mental health. It's pretty much always been a very physical or nutritional based mindset. And the job is literally, to me, 80% dealing with the psyche and relationship building of people. The exercise gets you into the door. How you treat people keeps them. And having understanding best practices when it comes to social, emotional, spiritual, mental health. I was really fortunate. That was my entire education. So I came out the box knowing a lot of the psychological theory, understanding how, philosophy, understanding how to argue, how to pull back, all these things. Most trainers get zero of that education, zero. So, they, especially when you're really young, you don't really have any experience in life. So if someone comes to you, they've had a lot of experience. There's just not a great match,
Yeah, I think it's definitely a two-way street. But what would you tell our listeners, right? So New Year resolutions are front of mind. Like, what would you tell our listeners to do to help them find a routine that's right for them? I mean, Michelle just had this experience where she goes to the gym. And Michelle, how many times have you been back to the gym since that time?
I went once and I just went in the pool like a drowning hippo, but I got down and back a couple times. And luckily I have a very supportive partner that was like, how many times did you swim last week? 0. So look, that you got in the pool, that's major. So
and
luckily,
I was just going to say, like, at least you went back, right? I mean,
yeah.
How many of our listeners are going to be like, if we get shamed to feel like that, and mind you, I haven't been lately, but how many times are you going to go back after that? So Darian, like, what do we do?
I love that. What do we do?
What do we do, Darian?
What do we do? Such an open-ended question there. What do we do?
It was.
I think the first thing is drop the resolution. Get rid of resolutions. That they don't work. They've never worked. It's a great thing for gyms and fitness professionals to market to people to get people in, but it doesn't keep people. It's a very short term. I always say it's like fitness and wellness. We've marketed as a cliff, 30 days, 60 days, and then we give nothing after that. So then you just keep recycling 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is. And we don't make it something that is a long-term commitment. I mean, fitness is a long-term commitment. It just is. But it's a complicated long-term commitment. Sounds a lot like personal relationships with that. So I would say the first thing is don't look at it as a resolution. Look at it as this is just a starting point and a long-term journey. And the goal is not to look at it like, do I have to do this forever? Don't look at it that way. Just like, okay, let's break this into, let's chunk this behavior. Let's create a shaping behavior. Let's try once a week. Let's try once. See how that goes. And over time, maybe we'll try it twice. and see that. It's just like build the habit over time, like a long period of time. I'm very conservative when I work with clients. Now, if somebody comes to me and says I haven't been working out, I want to work out 5 days a week, I'll say absolutely not. No way. That's a fast food habit. I'm like, let's build a slow cooking habit here for that. Let's start conservative, progressively build our way. The second thing I think is to be okay with asking for help. It's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to shop for that help and meet with a bunch of different professionals. If it's exercise, interview a bunch of different professionals, see who works for you, and also realize if you're someone that needs regular accountability. I started like, some people will say, I can do it myself. Then they sign up for the gym or whatever. And they haven't really looked within and said, it's okay to admit you can't do this on your own. I think that's a big block for a lot of people. It's like, it's my body. I should know what to do with my body. Why can't I do this with my body? That's not a weakness at all. It's just being honest about where you're at. The majority of people I've ever worked with in my life have come to that point. They're like, and I actually train a lot of people who are other professionals, like they're physical therapists, they're other exercise people. They go, I know what to do. I just will not do it. I will not do this. And there's a freedom when you come to that point, because then you no longer make that a friction point anymore. So like, get rid of the resolutions, be honest with yourself, and it's okay. And look for accountability. Accountability is usually a great starting point, is seeking that out and interview a lot of different people.
There are a couple things you said there that I'm immediately going to use. The first one being that when you're starting out again, that you're not expected to work out every day. I'm like, Darian told me I shouldn't be working out every day. So just even going back a couple times and like really doing anything more than you were doing prior is a step in the right direction. You said interview your fitness professionals, and you just, because there's a wall of so many faces on my gym, and I've kind of like narrowed down who I thought would be good, but then I'm like, how do I pick? And I have a definite flavor of who's going to work for me. It's like that, not tough love. It's like everything that you're talking about. Actually, maybe I'm going to sign up with you.
You should be talking to me, Michelle.
Yes. I think so. Yeah, you're totally my speed, because I need somebody who's going to just provide that empathy, and then also know when to give me that nudge and be like, all right, girl, like, come on, let's get after it. But just the thought that we can be empowered to interview the fitness professional, like we're hiring them, like they're our employee, we should be getting what we want and not feel like we're going along for the ride. So thank you for that. I'm just like, the gears are turning in my head now. And if they don't want to interview with you, like maybe that's an indicator of you're not taking this job seriously.
Yeah. I actually have a story about this real quick. It was my wife's one of her best friends, her husband was getting back in the gym, and he wanted to go to the gym. I was like, great, that's awesome. And so she said, why don't you talk to Darian, and he'll give you some advice about looking for a professional in that area if that's what we want to do. And I said the same thing. I said, you should interview the trainers. He didn't think about this either. I was like, this is your money. This is your time. You should just not be giving someone there. And if you're gonna find out real quick, very quickly, if someone's a good match for you, if you just ask questions. Have you worked with someone?
Okay, what questions do we ask? Tell me, help us.
Yeah, and the questions was, educational level. How long have you been doing this? How do you work with people who have been sedentary or have not been, working out for X amount of years? And in this case, I remember he was telling me he went and interviewed one of the trainers and came back, and the gentleman was trying to give him a bodybuilding routine, right? And I said, well, did you ask him what he does for training himself? And he was trying to give my friend the same training routine that he does himself. Big red flag, huge red flag. Also asking them what's their knowledge of psychological best practices. How do you work with people who are mental health? They're coming to the gym for mental health, which is almost now becoming one of the number one reasons people train and work out now, is just for mental health. How do you deal with someone who's coming in and they may be dealing with some psychosocial issues, something that crops up. How do you emotionally support them? Because a lot of training is a confidant relationship. It's companionship. How do you are you a good companion with the people you work with for that? Honestly, this is probably the first time they'll have ever heard these questions. The majority of trainers, and they'll be taken aback because they're not used to a consumer putting their foot forward. Most of the people come, the trainer controls the situation. The consumer goes, I need help me. Okay, yeah, I'll do whatever you want. Don't do that. Like, it's your money, it's your time. You should be controlling who you want to work with and how you want to do it.
Yeah. And I think there's also a lot of barriers, around the financial aspect as well. But I think that today it's so much more accessible. I mean, look at the trainers on Sophia Health alone. I mean, there's hundreds of people. And I think that there's a whole generation of people out there who are like, oh, that's for super, super wealthy people. And I just want to kind of bust that myth. I think that, you can have an affordable relationship with a trainer. Is that true?
Like, these are big questions. What do you do? Is that true? Yes and no. I'm going to say yes and no because I like to be very honest with people. I think if you're getting with someone who has a lot of experience, is really top of their game and stuff, it's going to be somewhat expensive. It's just the reality of it. Now, this is a one-on-one situation. If you go into a group training situation, it's certainly going to be less expensive. If you do something where it's more online coaching, you're not really doing a lot of training, it's going to be extremely inexpensive. But I think then this is a conversation with yourself. What will help me be sustainable with this? Is it just the coaching? Is it a group format? Is it one-on-one? Whatever works for you is what you should do for that. I do coaching. I've done group formats. I primarily do one-on-one. I like the one-on-one because I can customize it so much better that way. And I just build a better relationship with people. And I find that people like that a lot. Some people want the group format because they'll do it with their friends and stuff. And then everybody gets in there and the price decreases because it's the number of people and the price goes down for that. And then you have a lot of trainers who do, I said, just purely coaching, which is online program design. And they may have 50, 60, 70 clients, but they're not training them. They're just giving them programs. Well, I guess whatever works for you. Some people that's successful. I found with a lot of people, they struggle with that because no one's there to keep them accountable. I mean, it's easy to, if no one's there, it's easy to be like, not doing that today. Yeah, I'm just not doing that today. So it really depends on, that's a conversation with yourself as what will work best for you. But it can be expensive. It can be inexpensive depending on where you enter into that.
It sounds like maybe you could be in different seasons. Like for me right now, it sounds like I need a one-on-one. I really need that hand holding. But I've been in group fitness where I'm like, get out of my way. Don't talk to me. Like, I just want to do my thing, cue me. And then just being in that collective helps me feel motivated.
Michelle, why aren't you talking to me? You should be talking to me about this.
We are talking, Darian, and we're going to keep talking.
Keep talking. I'm like, man, this sounds pretty like, a relationship here. But yeah, it is the season that you're in. And but I want to be honest because I feel like it could be more expensive, can be less, depend on where you're at in your season for that. And a lot of people, sometimes the money part is an issue, but if there's a lot of things that people spend money on that they honestly could spend less on and spend more on other things. You guys also have to have an honest look at your budgeting as well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's expensive to be sick too. And, when I think about all the money I'm spending at acupuncture and chiropractor and, physical therapy, like, choose your expensive. Had I been keeping up with it, I might not have found myself in that position. So, like you said, it's a priority.
So Darian, you mentioned that the physical aspect of this is a lot more than just us working out and what we eat, the nutrition. Let's explore that a little bit. So as a personal trainer, you believe that there's this mental component as well. What do you think this picture looks like for the general well-being?
Well, I think one of the biggest parts is people often come in to working out and they make it a physical thing. Mostly, I think it's mostly been, people have been marketed into this, socialized into, this is a very physical endeavor. And I just don't see it that way. And all of my time training with people, the physical part is clearly important. I'm not downplaying that. But I've just found like the mental health, the social emotional connection, the confidant relationship, that always seems to be the tsunami that takes over the relationship for that. And so I often ask people like, well, why are you coming to see me? What has been the motivation? And it starts off being a physical thing related to their body, their conditioning, and then it always turns emotional after that. Like always, and like never doesn't become emotional. And then really that's the main purpose. There's something emotional going on. And we just explore that through the training. My goal with training people is to focus on how do we become better people, both you and me, through this process, and how do we walk together in it. And the exercise part will take care of itself. I've done this forever. I know what to do. That's the easy part. But the hard part is getting the person to show up regularly and then commit emotionally to the process, because it's very emotional. Because people show up differently each time to their session, each time they go to the gym. It's complicated. So understanding that person emotionally over time creates a lot of success with people. So I think that the mental, social, emotional part is actually more important part of the process. And if you have a great service provider or a great facility, gym, whatever, that's supportive of you, you're going to get that part. But how do you feel emotionally does this place make you feel like you want to be there? Does this person make you feel like you want to have a relationship with them on a regular basis? Like you were like, I would like to be around this person, be at this facility, be a part of this group, whatever it is. And because we're community-based people, humans are tribal. We move towards our tribes, our emotions, our feelings for that. I just tend to focus on that primarily. And I think most people are not told that's part of the process. It's about weight loss, or it's about, let me shake my arm and we got to get rid of this here. Oh, your triceps? It's always something like that. And I don't think that's what you mean, actually. I think it's a much deeper, because whenever I work with people, we end up talking about some pretty serious stuff on a regular basis. And I get involved in their lives pretty deeply over many years. I'm like, and then the thing that comes out always is, I don't really talk to a lot of people like this. It's like, there's the talk therapy for that. So you're getting kind of two things in one with it. So you're growing emotionally, socially, while also, if you show up regularly, you're going to grow physically as well with that.
Wow. Well, I don't know if you consider yourself a trauma-informed physical trainer, but you are. My specialty is trauma resolution, and everything that you're talking about is what we do in a relationship with our clients, of building that emotional safety, the titration, giving choice, slowing things down, making room for things to emerge. Those are all things that you're doing. And so I'm not surprised that people are like, holy cow, this is a different relationship than I've had, maybe even with their own therapist, because not every therapist is trauma informed. And like, spoiler alert, we all have trauma at this point. If you're a human being, there's trauma in your nervous system. And so I really see you as doing your part, and more than that, to help heal people's trauma. What a great opportunity as you're moving your body and becoming embodied and staying connected. Like, I think just the act of being mindful as you're moving your body has such a healing effect. And then having this kind person holding the container for whatever emerges, the shame, the sadness, the rage. I mean, you're doing trauma work. I don't know if you knew
and
that.
I know this. I was
Yeah.
very aware of this when I first started, and I hadn't, done all of my formal education through, universities and stuff, but it just became apparent. And when I was going through the process, I was like, oh, I need to arm myself with this. So I took public speaking. I had a psychiatrist during my education. I was like, I need to buffer myself for a lot of energy that's going to be coming my way for this, and be a good servant to other people. And so I always think I had a huge advantage.
I mean, this, to me, I just hear this is why you've had clients for 17 plus years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like it's a big part because I just connect emotionally with people. And And I was very validated. Like this past summer, our biggest fitness organization in the United States, IDEA, and they named me Personal Trainer of the Year 2023. I was such a big validation for me because, you work in the dark most of the time. No one sees what you're doing. You're one-on-one with someone, and to get the validation and your industry coming together to say, hey, we want to celebrate your work. That was really amazing for me. I was so humbled by it because you're just working. You're just working with people day in, and it's not glamorous. It's messy, actually, most of the time with people. When you're getting into a relationship with someone, you're accepting some level of trauma with that person when you're with them. And so I just always accept it. And then I just made sure that I have continued to work on myself so that I could be a good servant to other people when I'm there and come as my best self as much as possible.
Michelle, this does sound exactly like what you do.
I know. I'm like, I want to get you enrolled in our somatic experiencing training. You would be great. We actually just had a trainer come through, and he was saying how powerful that work was in working with his clients. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm working with trauma all the time. Even he had a client that she tripped over something and she went down, and learning, from the somatic experiencing training, he like got down on the ground. He's like, nope, stay down, take a moment, orient yourself. Let's move really slowly. He's like, I would have never done that. I would have helped her right up before. And, there's so many things. He's like, wow, this is so applicable. So now, we'll have to talk offline as I'm training, and I'm going to get you enrolled in that program because I want you in our community there too.
Well, Darian, how would you, if you had to give some tips for people who, may not be able to work with you, how can you give people the motivation to stay motivated?
Motivation's tricky, because really the technical definition is direction and energy, or direction intensity. And that could come from a lot of places. But I always say, I think this is going to go back to, if you want to find the motivation, you got to find the emotional thing that will keep you in something. What is that emotional anchor that will keep you involved in something? Is it your children? Is it your partner? Is it how you want to see yourself in the future? What is it that makes you emotional? It's like, think about all the wonderful memories and all the bad memories in your life. They're tied to some very strong emotion, and you remember them because of that. And create the same level of emotional attachment to taking care of yourself. More than likely start building this incredible habit that will feel emotional, and you'll continue to do it because it is so emotional. It's so important to you. So I don't think that anyone could tell you exactly what that is to find what their motivation is, but whatever it is, make it emotional. It's what keeps you glued to your children, to your spouse, your partner, to a job you love. It's emotional. You have to tap into that.
Well, now you just described motivational interviewing. So you're like essentially a psychologist. I grant you your psychology license. Because, with motivational interviewing, you would say, how invested are you in this goal, and 0 to 10. And somebody like rarely will say 10. They'll say, whatever. And you'll say, what keeps it from being a 0? So like I'm invested like 1 out of 10. Okay, but what keeps it from being a 0? And they'll say, well, I've got these young kids, or I've got this. So there's something that is, the thing that's motivating them. And then that's what you focus on, just what you talked about, of finding that emotional thing of what even allowed you to show up today. Like you might have 1% hope. Let's kind of zoom in on that 1% and help it get bigger.
Yeah.
So,
and then be around people that actually see you, like really see you. And then tell you good things. Like that's one of my calling cards of my work with people is I always tell them how much they mean to me. I see you. You're important. You're a good person. You're worthy. And they always say, no one ever tells me that. Like, well, you should be told that pretty regularly. And you're building this confidence, this self-esteem, this belief that you're important to someone for that. And that, I think, just building that is really important with people. So I always, try to do that with clients, is telling them, hey, I'm so grateful for you. You're such an amazing person. Thank you for sharing your life with me. and just, you don't hear that stuff. Who says stuff to people like that? I don't know. You need to hear that. We need to hear that more often from each other. It's really important. So kind of this life-giving force, this feeling of feeling important, feeling cared for, because we're all running on the wheel, we're working, we're taking care of people. And even the people you love the most, sometimes you just don't hear from them. Everybody's busy, or you don't slow down. This is my problem going back to the gym with the phones and people seeing. Like, I work through my phone and stuff, but at the gym, I always tell people, I was counseling a couple people at one of the colleges I work at, and they're always listening to stuff on their phone or the earpods. So what would happen if you just didn't listen to anything and you just connected with yourself, the rhythm of your feet running, your heartbeat, your respiration? That's the music, actually, if you allow yourself to be uncomfortable with not having distraction going on for that. And that is a newer concept to, I think, younger folks today, as they've grown up with constant distraction. And so while there may be a movement for self-care and moving towards yourself, we're still distracting ourselves all the time.
We are, which is a little sad to hear, because I really believe in meditation. Even if that's cutting out all the distraction noise for 5 minutes the first thing when I wake up, to cut that noise out. And it sounds like with your act of being grateful, if you, I know a lot of people have stress and anxiety, but if you take a minute and you just try that act of being grateful for what you do have, it will change your entire mood immediately. And the fact that you practice that with your clients and building these relationships, I think it's pretty incredible.
Well, I was going to say, you just described mindfulness meditation, whether you're running, whether you're lifting, like that, you can get double bang for your buck. You can get your meditation in and your workout. Yeah. Yeah.
All
I
about
love
a
that.
great conversation is meditative. I mean, it just is.
I have a question that's like a total non sequitur, but I just have to ask because I have you here. When somebody is on their phone in the gym and they're on that piece of equipment and like, what's the right way to approach that? Like, let's assume that you don't want to be confrontational or a jerk or like, post up on them, but like, what would be a way that you could ask without being like passive aggressive? What would you mean? Maybe it's like so simple, it's obvious.
Yeah, a big thing would just be, I think it's the approach to that landing. It's come in and say, hey, you're using that, and that's not the right thing to do. It's like, hey, I was wondering if I could actually work in with you. Even just the sound of your voice, could I work in with you? I would love to do this machine as well for that. It's just like, you see, like, I'm more up, my voice is a little higher. It's like cheerful versus like, hey, can I work in with you? And my facial expression, or saying, you've been on there a long time. I mean, the best way to create controversy is to create defensiveness is by creating an offensive game plan for people. So I think it's just all how you say it to people. Somebody's on there. Oh, I would love to use this right here. Do you mind if I work in with you? I mean, they'll be like, oh yeah, sure. I mean,
I love that. It also kind of removes that assumption that they're kind of being rude, because, in your head, you can be like, okay, they're being rude, they're doing this. So it makes you want to come in with that, hey, it's my turn, get out of here. But now you're like, hey, I want to do this with you, like I need a workout buddy, if you kind of change.
And they'll start talking to you too. They'll start talking to you at the saying, oh yeah. And you just all of a sudden you create a conversation, even though you may not want that, if that's not your thing there, but it's just, I think it's just the approach. It's, is this a soft landing or a hard landing we're trying to do here? I mean, I'm trying to go for the soft landing. And I'm not going to create the confrontation. I'm just going to bring a softer landing. And if somebody is rude after that, I mean, that's just a whole other issue going on. That has nothing to do with me. That's all on that end.
I don't think that's possible if you're at the gym working out and building all those endorphins,
Well, and it's funny though, because I get so like, oh, they're just sitting there. But, as soon as I have a judgment about somebody, the universe shows me how I'm exactly like that person. So as soon as I have that judgment, like fast forward to the next day, I'm sitting on the machine on my phone doing something. And it's like, now I'm the jerk. So I try to just hold that little bit of grace for people of we're just distracted or we're not self-aware, but that's not a felony. It's just a parking
Michelle,
ticket.
maybe they're listening to our amazing podcast. So next time you should just smile and be like, hey, is that Sophia Unfiltered under there?
I got a good podcast for you. Listen to.
I've got another podcast. What's coming up next?
Yeah. Actually, I have other teaching colleagues who are like, how do I get students to not be on their phone during class and all that? I said, well, have you like engaged with them like in a way that, like I just said, like I was teaching a class and it was like a weight training class, and a lot of them, have the big headphones on. They have their phone, and I don't say get off your phone. I just go up to them. I start talking to them. When someone start talking to you, and then you got all this stuff on, you're gonna be like, I need to take this off, like intuitively. And then you start talking to them, and you just keep engaging them. And I noticed none of the students were on their phone anymore because I was just constantly getting around everybody, talking to them, being positive with them, showing them different techniques and stuff. And we just never had an issue. It's the person who comes over and goes, get off that phone. What are you doing? You've just created defensiveness when you've done that. So
I mean, they could also be using it as a social buffer too, right? For the people that may be introverted, and if you're not on your phone, you're just standing around by yourself, not talking to anybody. So that's hard as well. So sometimes it's kind of a safety.
The gym is also a place where a lot of people are unsure of what they want to do when they're there. And because they're not professionals, it's a lot of people in there is like, let me think about what I want to do. So you're sitting there thinking, how many sets should I do? What should I be on the treadmill? Like, it's a lot of thinking, and you don't want to feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. No one wants to feel that way. And so that is a buffer for people to feel like, yeah, I'm busy in between this. I don't look like I'm not knowing what I'm doing, type of thing. So that could be part of it too,
That's true. I mean, I know sometimes, well, when I used to work out, but I'd have like ideas come to me, it's like you're moving your body and all of a sudden like this idea just lands and you're like, oh, I want to capture this really quick. Otherwise it goes. So I have to give people the benefit of the doubt and maybe just lead by example, like be the change. If you don't want to see people on the phone, then don't be on your phone.
I really like Darren's idea of just talking to him and be like, I want to work in with you, and
work in with you. It sounds so cool. I don't know if I can, I'm going to practice.
You don't know if you can go in there and do it.
Hey, can I work in with you?
It sounds totally
I'd
natural.
probably laugh after and then they're going to look at me like, I know what I'm doing. We're like, oh, okay. Like, and then I'm going to be like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, but Dr. Parker just told us nobody knows what we're doing. It's okay to not know what we're doing.
Most people don't. They're just, a lot of the breaks in gyms are just people trying to figure out what they want to do next. Like they're uncomfortable.
Or trying to build a motivation to keep going.
Yeah, like, should I be? I've seen plenty of people in gyms where they do a couple sets of a random exercise and then they walk out. They're unsure of what to do. They're like, I don't know. It's just, it happens, right? I mean, I had clients when I used to train people in person all the time, they would tell me they would struggle to get to their session. And sometimes they would just drive into the parking lot and drive around the parking lot, just trying to get themselves to park. And I used to always say, that is okay. Don't ever let anybody tell you that's bad. You're just in a stage where you're having a complicated relationship with this. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine. One day, and like you're working your way through the stages, here it's okay. Versus someone else might say, what's a waste of time? What are you doing? Okay, you just dropped them down again. Now they're like, oh, I feel terrible. No, why do that? Just be nice. My whole thing is just be nice. I'm like,
yeah, well, it makes me want to come back. If it's like, okay, that soft landing of have it be that positive association to where like the gym becomes like, I'm going to be received with happiness and it's going to be okay no matter what I do, or, showing up online. It's like, I want to open that computer because I know I'm going to feel a little bit better than before I started, maybe won't be sweating buckets, but like I'm better for it. It's like every time you meditate, you're not like, oh, I wish I could give back that 5 minutes or the 10 minutes. You're like, really glad I did that. And same thing, even if you can get yourself to the gym and whatever you can do, it's like you wouldn't give that back because that's a move in the right direction.
I know for me personally, I love the run and the runner's high and just feeling out of breath and just going even further. I love that piece. That's about all I do right now.
I'm like, oh,
Michelle was like,
ugh, ugh.
Swimming will do it too. That's a lot of breathing exercises.
Well, I really do miss weightlifting. I do miss weightlifting. I used to love weightlifting. It just, when you don't have a lot of strength, it's like, even the lowest thing of some of the machines is too heavy for me right now. And it's like, what? But I don't know.
Michelle and I
think
have both had chronic issues in our backs, so we're coming back from that. We're going to get strong again. Darian, while we still have you and while we've met the world's greatest personal trainer, and I know that a lot of the fitness is mental, right? We've talked about that. But what fitness tips do you have for us and our listeners? Like, how do we get to the gym? Okay, I'm just kidding. How do we do more than 4 lunges? I'm just kidding. What fitness tips? I mean,
yeah, you
us?
know what's, I just had this conversation a little bit, and I think it's obvious and not obvious at the same time. So, um, a lot, like I just had this conversation. This is not necessarily a fitness thing, but it applies. I was having a conversation. I was doing a presentation on sleep, and at a college, and it was great. I really enjoyed talking about those different research behind it. And one of the gentlemen came up to me and he was like, I'm taking these supplements and it makes me nauseous, and then I can't work out the way I want. I said, have you ever thought about trying different supplements? And he goes, no. And I think this is indicative of fitness as well. As if you've been lifting an 8-pound dumbbell for an entire year, have you ever thought about lifting 10? No. It's obvious and not obvious for that. A big fitness tip is just progressive overload. Like if you want to get stronger and whatever component that is, whether it's a cardiorespiratory fitness, muscular strength, endurance, mobility, stability, there has to be some level of changing the metrics in order to be slightly uncomfortable to move forward. So, but this is a hard concept too, because humans are very much into inertia. I mean, if the effort feels too big for the positive progress, we tend to just stay backwards. We'll accept the loss versus accepting the positive forward movement if it involves a lot of uncomfortable feelings. So I think one of the biggest fitness tips is don't look for something that you just think you'll enjoy all the time. This is also a marketing ploy in fitness, because whenever you're working with your body and you're trying to improve, you will have some level of discomfort. But you could say that about almost anything that you try that's new or different. It doesn't feel good, especially initially. You have to accept that. Now, how much discomfort, that's a whole other conversation about making sure the dosage is correct for the person, that they're not going to feel demotivated to come back. So finding something that is effective and that it ties you emotionally, but that allows you to move forward. You have to move forward, or unless you're in a maintenance program. If that's what you want, that's fine. But if you want to improve, the tip is that you're going to feel some discomfort. Like, just accept that from the jump. Just make that part of your program. I accept that when I work with this professional, or if I work by myself and I move up and whatever that is, it's not going to feel that great all the time. That's okay.
Yeah, same could be said for any type of growth. Growth is uncomfortable, but it's really nice when you get to that next level and you can look back.
Yeah.
And I think that's what stops people a lot. They feel uncomfortable and they go, well, I want this to be enjoyable. Like, I want to do something all the time that feels good to me. I think we're in this part of life. It feels like this time where we want to have pure joy all the time. That's not reality. Like, it's just, there are hard times. Being alive is hard and improving is hard. And we need to accept that's part of the journey.
You know what I think is interesting is accepting that as part of the journey, but also not making it like, oh, this is uncomfortable for me, and internalizing it and saying like, I'm being ashamed about where I'm at in this journey. How do we keep it separate instead of making it about us and be like, this is just where I'm at in this journey. And when I start training on my, arms or biceps or whatever it is coming next, that's going to also be difficult as well to get started. So we have to figure out how to do that.
And that also is part of like being around good people in your life who will celebrate you. And when you talk to them about your progress, that they don't make it about themselves or they don't try to put you down to lift themselves up in that. So people who are just celebrate you and go, man, you made another great, you win again? That's so awesome. That's amazing. That's inspiring.
Having a support
who are the
system.
people in your life?
I really love that you came here and we talked about fitness, but it's so much more. We knew that so much more. I mean, Sophia Health is here for all the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. And you have brought in all of these elements and really helped our listeners understand just how important these mental aspects are before you even get to the gym and show up.
This is an awesome conversation. I love having these conversations because it's just deeper than the general nature of fitness. It's so much, it's life. Life is so much deeper than the surface,
I mean, I didn't know you did a speech on sleep. Michelle and I
yeah.
are avid believers. We may have to have you back to talk about that.
Big sleep research person, do presentations on it. Big. Actually, fitness professionals are some of the worst sleepers, which is crazy. And it's
I have something in common with fitness professionals. I'm like halfway there.
But it's all training. I really believe most of life is training on some format. It's if I always approach everything I do as a training format. I'm like, if I want to be a better spouse, better father, better fitness, I have to train for it. I have to become better. I have to work on myself. I've been doing that my whole life, even if it doesn't feel great. I was so scared to speak in front of tons of people, and I forced myself to take a public speaking class just because I needed to get out of that. If I wanted to be better at my job, I needed to learn how to speak. I need to learn how to, connect with others and stuff. So it's uncomfortable. I didn't want to do that, but I'm so glad I did.
I mean, it's always uncomfortable. I mean, look, Michelle and I are transforming our whole podcast. We're revamping it, and it's always a work in progress and learning, and it's always uncomfortable, but at least we're starting, at least
it's
we started and we're here.
To be more comfortable. Like you become more comfortable, but it's uncomfortable to get to that position. And so there's a question, you've listed a lot of things, but there's a question that we ask all of our guests that come on the podcast. What are your 3 pillars of health? Like, what are your non-negotiables that you need to do to keep your head right or keep your life on the right trajectory?
What we just talked about, sleep is probably number 1 for me, exercise, and then building positive relationships. Those, that's it. Those 2 things. I think most of those things stand on sleep. When you don't sleep well, you're not a great person to other people. And there's a tremendous amount of meta-analyses and stuff that indicate that a lot of our behavioral issues, depression, anxiety, all that, many may be stemming from our chronic lack of sleep we have in the United States and in the world, honestly. And if we just got back to the basics of that, you would treat other people much better. I think we're a very sleep-deprived society. We're an exercise, believe it or not, deprived society. And we're even worse, we're an extremely lonely society. And so for me, I focus on those 3 things to keep me very level and to be the very best I can be for all the people in my life.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to know you, and I'm going to call you. I'm not kidding.
You should. Michelle, I need to hear from you. Come on now.
I need to be trained. So Darian, where can our listeners connect with you if they would like to be trained by you or just know more about you, stay in contact? Like, let us know how to reach you.
Yeah. My website, drdarianparker.com, spell out the doctor, has all my training philosophy, which if you listen to this, you'll read it and you'll like, that's the same thing. It sounds like the same thing. For that, has my podcast on there, Dr. D's Social Network. And then through LinkedIn, I use that primarily. And that's it. I keep it pretty simple. But I'm always available. I will get back to you extremely quickly if you contact me because I value your time and I want to be respectful of you reaching out.
That is awesome. Darian, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Riley, Michelle.
Thanks so much for listening. This has been Sophia Unfiltered, a podcast by Sophia Health. the #1 marketplace for health and wellness. Find services, classes, and products from the top health and wellness providers. Book an appointment or join live classes now. I'm your host, Riley Reese. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear about it in the comments section of your favorite podcast provider or with a 5-star rating. Let us know what your biggest takeaway from this episode was, or share it with someone you hope to inspire. Join us again next time for more real conversations, stories, and insights that help empower you with the knowledge and inspiration needed to transform how we care for ourselves.